Howdy, it's Kyle talking about Battleground and toss-up congressional races for the 2022 election. Right off the bat, I want to say I'm not going to be talking about any issues in this video, and I'm not even going to be mentioning the candidates' names. I just want to go over some of the geography of these toss-up districts. I'm going to leave timestamps below for people that want to skip ahead to a specific district, but I want to talk about why I chose the districts I'm going to be talking about in this video. Normally we hear about how cities are liberal and rural areas are conservative, and the battleground areas are the suburbs where the cities meet the rural areas, and for the most part that's true, but the 8 districts I'm going to be discussing in this video are not suburban. One of them kind of is, but for the most part these are larger areas of a state, maybe several counties wide, maybe the southern part of a state or the western part of a state, whatever it happens to be. So a larger area that's also toss-up, so not just a smaller suburban district. And I want to talk about some of the population growth or decline in these districts, what might be driving the economy, and just kind of what might make this district a toss-up district, even though it is much larger than a suburban area. And sadly, I do have to mention a little bit about gerrymandering. There has been redistricting in the past couple of years, and I've seen some of the most brazen gerrymandering in this past round that I've seen in quite a while, so it's pretty bad. And you think of just in the past 2 years, approximately 16 to 18 congressional seats have flipped by doing nothing more than changing the district lines by gerrymandering. So that's a lot of districts to have flipped by nothing more than politicians moving things on a whim. So it's very frustrating. I know politicians are the scumdogs of the universe, but somebody has to win some of these races. So let's talk about some of these battleground districts for 2022. I want to start off with Ohio, which is fitting because it's one of the most gerrymandered states in the country. The district I want to take a look at is district number 1 in the southwestern portion of the state. The county is highlighted in purple, and where the 1 actually is, Warren County, is an exurban county to the city of Cincinnati. The southern part of that district in Hamilton County is essentially the city of Cincinnati. It's been gerrymandered to where it's not with its immediate suburban counties, but with a more exurban county that's more rural. In fact, Cincinnati is the largest metropolitan area in the country in which the central city of that metro does not have congressional representation. The city of Cincinnati has seen modest growth over the past decade or so, and like many other cities, there's been a small population drop over the past year. Warren County has a much smaller population but has been growing at a much faster rate. Not only is Warren County exurban to Cincinnati to the southwest, but also to Dayton to the north. So people looking to get away from either of these 2 metro areas but still be close enough to get to them very easily might very well be moving to Warren County. And I really don't like districts like this where you're trying to put the center city up against the exurbs with a little thin line connecting the 2. A central city, if it's not large enough for its own district, should be in the same districts as immediate suburbs, not with far out exurbs. But even with this new gerrymander, this District 1 is still considered a toss-up. The next one I want to look at is New Mexico District 2. So as you can see from this map, District 2 is essentially the southern half of the state, and District 1 is the Albuquerque metro area. So no real gerrymander here. This is how the district should look, and it's also a toss-up district. The southeasternmost portion of the state around Hobbs, Artesia, and Carlsbad is where you have a lot of the oil industry. There's a lot of oil and natural gas infrastructure in this part of the state, but not a lot of population growth. Outside of the town of Carlsbad is Carlsbad Caverns National Park, so you do have some tourism in that area, as well as White Sands National Park around Alamogordo. The southwestern portion of the state is much more wilderness, with the Boot Heel, the southwesternmost portion of it, being almost entirely wilderness. But the major population center of this district is the town of Las Cruces, right in the south central part of the district. It's home to New Mexico State University, and there's also been a lot of population growth there recently because of people wanting to retire there. And Silver City, not too far from the Arizona border, is another college town, so the southwestern portion of this district has 2 colleges. And combine that with the oil and natural gas in the southeastern portion of this district, and you can see why this is a toss-up battleground district. The next state I want to look at is Iowa and the Congressional District number 3. Take a look at these 2 maps. The one on the left is the old district lines, and the one on the right are the current ones. And what's very frustrating about this is that the map on the left was created by an algorithm to make sure each of the districts was as competitive as possible. The one on the right was drawn up by politicians. So Iowa took a massive step backwards from having a system that gives fair congressional districts and goes to a partisan drawn one, and you can see the gerrymandering here. So District 3 is the one that's kind of peach colored. It's Des Moines, the largest city in the state, and then it wraps around to some more rural areas outside of it. But just like the other ones, the intent is to keep the city separate from its suburbs. So Des Moines suburbs are primarily some of those green counties to the east and south. So in order to get Des Moines separated, they wanted to wrap it around with many very rural counties to the southwest and just farther to the south. But like many other parts of the Midwest or other parts of the country, the city of Des Moines and surrounding areas are growing in population, but most of those other peach counties outside of the urban area are losing population. Iowa is not a very fast growing state, and there haven't been a lot of changes in the demographics, so the only real changes have been in the district line, so we'll see how things change just simply by gerrymandering. The state that lost a congressional district in the latest round of apportionment is California, and so the district lines were moved around as a result, and the one I want to look at here for this video is District 22, right in the middle of the state. This is the district that I grew up in, and it's really weird to see this as a toss-up district, as growing up we never even had to see ads for the candidates because it was guaranteed to go to one candidate or the other. So you look where District 22 is, but also 21, 23, and 16. This is the agricultural capital of the U.S. This is the poorest region in the state and is a far cry from what you normally think of along the coast in the state. Most of the jobs in this area are either directly or indirectly associated with agriculture. Most of the coastal areas of the state have seen population decline over the past couple of years, but the San Joaquin Valley, which is the area around District 22, has seen population gain. A good part of the population growth in this part of the state is people from the coastal areas moving here because it's much cheaper. District 22 in this part of the state in general is Hispanic majority, predominantly Mexican, and District 22 especially is where you see a lot of farm worker poverty. In fact, some of the worst poverty you'll see in the U.S. is in this district. Each of the parties has won this district the past 2 elections, so this might very well be a 3rd election in a row where this seat flips. So New York, California, and a few other states lost a congressional district and a few others gained, and I want to talk about one that did, and that's Montana. Prior to this election, Montana only had 1 congressional district, but now it has 2. And this is how the state was drawn up, but this is actually a fair way to draw up the 2 districts. If you look at a physical map of Montana, you can see how the congressional districts conform to the physical geography. So the western district is more mountainous and higher elevation, and the eastern district is more high plains. So the one I want to look at is that western district, which is Montana 1. The eastern district race will not be competitive, but the western district one should be. The Western District includes the towns of Missoula, Bozeman, Butte, and Kalispell. Bozeman and Missoula are the 2 cities that have seen the most population growth, but there's also been some growth in the northwestern portion of the state, some of the areas around Glacier National Park and some of the ski resort areas. Missoula and Bozeman are both college towns, and Bozeman especially has seen a lot of population growth recently coming from people from all over the country. A lot of ultra wealthy and celebrities have a 4th or 12th house there. It's also a big area for tourism with ski resorts and Yellowstone National Park being nearby. Butte is one of the oldest towns in Montana. There's a long copper mining history there. So you don't normally think of Montana being a battleground state, but basically all of the left-leaning people in the state live in this western district, so this district itself is kind of a toss-up, even though the eastern district is not. And the last one that I want to talk about is another state that received a new congressional district with the latest apportionments, and that's North Carolina. North Carolina 13 is the new one, and it's a big-time toss-up. Up until just a few years ago, North Carolina was one of the most gerrymandered states in the country, but a court struck down their lines and they had to redraw the districts. So you combine that with the census, and now you have these new districts. There was some contentiousness as to how they would be drawn, but this final map does look pretty good. It preserves geographic integrity throughout most of the state, and this area, District 13, is just south of Raleigh and north of Fayetteville. However, one thing I really do hate about this district is right here. The line goes right through the city of Raleigh. And I hate it when they divide cities like this, so you're in a different district than the person across the street from you, but in the same district as somebody over an hour away. And that's been much more common over the past couple of years, with the new district lining, many more cities being chopped in half to limit their voting power. But even with that, this district is still competitive with half the city of Raleigh and some of the exurbs to the south. And as a state, North Carolina has seen a lot of population growth, especially in this part of the state around Raleigh and Durham. The state has gone really big in high-tech medical, bioscience research, and all that kind of stuff that's going on in the Research Triangle. So kind of like Grand Rapids mentioned before, and a few other cities as well, big-time high-tech medical is driving the economy and population growth. And this district does stretch south of here to some pretty small towns in a very rural area, but even these areas are seeing population growth because they're not that far from Raleigh and within commuting distance. And this race will show how much influence the Raleigh-Durham area has on the exurban areas south of the metro area as opposed to the suburban areas to the north and west of Raleigh. So that's my look at 8 battleground congressional districts for 2022. And as I alluded to many times in the video, gerrymandering is a terrible thing, and it means we live in a republic with an asterisk on it. So it's just very frustrating that even though we're not changing what we think is not changing, politicians on a whim moving lines of districts means that the whole balance of power of the government changes because of just a few state houses politicians. So very frustrating, but gerrymandering is a fact that we have to deal with right now. So these are the districts as they stand, and somebody has to win one of these districts, and one of these might very well be the one that leads to the change and balance of power in the House. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give me a thumbs up to let me know you approve, and subscribe to this channel if you're interested in learning more about U.S. geography. I'm a bit of a nerd, so things come from a more nerdy type perspective. But yeah, thanks for watching. Geography King, signing out. I'd like to give a special thanks to my superior patrons for their support, especially John McM. So if you're interested in purchasing a pin for the viewer pin map that I update every now and then, or just to support the channel, check out my Patreon page, link in the description. And as always, thank you very much.